the difference between money in banking or the Treasury and the Federal Reserve goes into, I think, what we can think of as the hierarchy of credit or the hierarchy of money. And, people like Hyman Minsky and others talked a lot about this too. But basically, the line that a lot of MMTers borrow from Minsky is anyone can create money. The challenge is to get it accepted. And you can use the word credit there as a close substitute or almost equivalence. But one way to think about that is credit is often extended and then can be, you can pay back something you owe against that person by giving back their credit. So if I say to someone, hey, I owe you $10 in the future, and then I do some separate favor for them and they owe me, now I owe them $10. They can say, well, let's just cancel it out. You owed me 10, I owed you 10, let's cancel it out. That kind of relationship can exist between private actors, even if they don't have access to any external source of public money. You could have 5 actors all offsetting credit and debts with each other, and that could clear without any need of external money. Now, what you can't do there is necessarily choose a single unit of account. You're doing that in dollars, even if it's your credit instruments, they're in dollars. If I issue an I owe you $10, someone needed to come up with dollars before I could do that. And again, for that to be enforceable in an advanced modern economy, that means contracts, property, I need to have legal standing, all of that kind of stuff as well. So you can have credit that can appear kind of anywhere where people are willing to accept it with each other, but in practice, it's always embedded in these larger public, legal, social dynamics. But one thing you can't do with private credit, of course, is pay your taxes, is pay the court, is pay the things that require an official money. And so as a result, that official money ends up having a unique value relative to those other systems of private credit. And given that often people will interact with the government or different agents or entities of the government or franchised sort of subordinates, much more than they will with any particular one private actor, that often becomes the most useful, widely available form of money. People know that as long as they want their property rights and their contracts and all that stuff to exist, that the state will exist, and they know the state's going to need these dollars. So if you have to trust my random IOU or the state's money as something that's likely to have enduring value, unless you're talking about a government about to collapse or something, or you're betting that it will, you're probably going to want to stick with that public money. Now, one thing we have done over time, and this has a lot of relationship to, I think, the early capacities of the modern state, the sort of real resource, the governance, the institutional administrative capacities, we have franchised or outsourced a lot of that money creation role to private banks. And it's a sort of public-private partnership. It's almost like the original neoliberalism going back 700 years. But the idea is that these banks often have a capacity to process payments and transactions in much wider scope than we might have or the state might have as a single central entity. I mean, to use the United States as a good example, if you have a very small federal government, it's only recently formed, it's only just starting to assert itself, right? These United States is still the term in the early 1800s. And then you have a system of thousands and thousands of private commercial banks all around the country. It's almost like having little information processors. They can settle payments, they can communicate with each other. Suddenly, instead of everything having to go through DC or something, you can have a much larger distributed network that settles amongst itself and only needs to tap the public authority at the edges, right? In the final analysis, in the settlement moment. But modern banks today, the liabilities they issue, the IOUs they issue, the debt that then serves as money for most of us in our bank account, it's not obviously gold bars in a vault somewhere like a Harry Potter book. It's just a straight IOU that promises to pay either other bank money or actual dollars. And what has happened over time is that those actors have had their IOUs essentially guaranteed by the state. So even though it's privately issued, it's got a little stamp in the corner that says FDIC insured, and we treat it as equivalent to regular public money because we know that the one-to-one convertibility there will stay alive.